your weekly horoscope with Jerry and Matt.
Audio Jungle. Audio Jungle.
Good evening. Welcome, horror fans. This is the weekly horoscope, back with another edition. I'm your host, Jerry, here with my partner, Matt. And Matt, this week we are clowning around. And, you know, when we pick these topics, sometimes we go off in the weeds a little bit and maybe take a foreign film or an obscure film. But I think in this category, we picked probably the films people would most expect. And but I think they fit so perfectly, we kind of had to.
Yeah, I agree 100%. These are two movies. When we talk about clown horror movies, I think you have to mention these two without a doubt. I think they're top tier in the class.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. Particularly for me, the first movie we're going to start with is It from 2017, directed by Andy Muschietti, and to me, it's the pinnacle of the category. I think it even improves over the 1990 TV special because it does several things well. It's able to be R-rated. It embraces the source material. It doesn't shy away from, you know, the absolute darkness and horror that they were kind of limited to in the TV version. And it's also got beautiful imagery, and it's also incredibly well acted by the young actors throughout the movie. So. As well as Bill Skarsgård as Pennywise is phenomenal.
Yeah, I mean, right off the bat, I'll just say this movie is phenomenal. If any movie was going to have to be remade, I think it was the 1990 series It, because it was just so impactful, and the book is so influential that this movie had to be remade, and they did it so well. I agree 100%. The dialogue is fantastic. I think like you said, the imagery is fantastic. I think everything they do across the board, the acting, the child actors did phenomenal.
Yeah, this is
almost had this like Spielbergish Goonies feel to it. You know, like it's like this coming of age, but also it's a horror movie. Like the way they blended it was fantastic.
Yeah, and you know, Stephen King's always captured that childhood nostalgia so well. If you think of like movies like Stand By Me, based on The Body. It makes you feel like you're a child again, and it makes you feel like you're there, and it's so real. And despite this being obviously a movie not grounded in reality, the kids are real.
Yeah, the way they interact, like they're not like overly over the top, but like they're like a little potty mouth, like which you would expect kids like that to be. It's the 80s, you know, it has that 80s vibe to it. They're on bikes, kind of cruising town and getting into a little bit of a trouble, but nothing too bad.
Yeah, for sure. Movie starts with Bill, our main character, making his little brother Georgie a boat that he can go sail in the rain, but he claims he's too sick to go out with him. And so we see Georgie in his iconic yellow raincoat chasing his boat through the fast-running water, and he loses it into a drain. And as it goes into the shadow of the drain, we see Pennywise's eyes emerge deep in the shadow. And just his eyes, most of his face is still hidden at this point, and he slowly moves forward. And it's such a great introduction to the film. And he starts engaging with Georgie, you know, making small talk, trying to make him laugh. And you know, Georgie finally says, "I got to get back." And he tells him, "You better get your boat or Bill's going to be mad."
Yeah, he says he'll kill you. Yeah.
And he doesn't question, like, how do you know my brother's Bill?
That's a good point.
And then we see Penny, he reaches in for the boat, and Pennywise's jaws open impossibly wide, and he takes a big bite off of Georgie's arm, and the arm is gone. And then there's this beautiful overhead shot in the rain. Beautiful is a weird word, but you got the bright
as far
yellow,
as the cinematography goes, right?
Yeah, you get the bright yellow coat of Georgie, and you have the blood running because from the missing arm, and he's trying to slide back away from the sewer, and the shot is directly overhead, like we're falling down with the raindrops into this scene. But then Pennywise's arm reaches again impossibly long, and drags him in, and he's gone.
Yeah, so there's this immediate supernatural feel to it, you know.
and they kept before this movie came out, they used parts of this in the preview. And I remember before it came out, I'm running around showing everybody I can, like, look at this preview. This movie is going to be incredible.
Yeah, I remember seeing it and thinking the same thing. I was like, "Oh, here we go!" And what a unique scene to me. Like, I think that's just the genius of Stephen King. Like, a kid comes across a sewer because, like, when you're a kid, and you see sewers, you're always like, "What is down there?" You know what I mean? Like, I just kind of remember feeling like that, and like what a genius scene that he was able to bring that out. Like, imagine just walking by a sewer and there's a killer clown looking out at you. Like, hey, come on down here.
Yeah,
Like it's just it's so unique. It's brilliant.
yeah, very surreal. I think
Yeah.
uh, as I rewatched it, and I was taking notes, and I've loved it since it came out. I saw it at the movies, I saw it at the drive-in, I saw it multiple times.
Yeah, I saw it in theaters twice.
It's one of the best openings of any horror movie.
I agree. Yeah.
That establishing scene with Bill and Georgie is just phenomenal. So we move forward in the story. Months later, there's a group of kids at school, and it's Bill and it's his buddy Richie and Eddie and Stan, and we meet a new kid, a chubby kid named Ben, and there's a girl who's picked on with a bad reputation, Beverly, and school's ending, and Bill wants to look for Georgie, but his friends are kind of pushing back. They want to enjoy summer. They're kids. They don't want to be on this bleak, dark quest. But Bill lost his brother, and I believe he was never as sick as he indicated that morning. And I believe that guilt stays with him through the whole movie and kind of dictates his actions.
Yeah, there's a lot of I'd say between these two movies, one of them is psychologically menacing and one of them is physically menacing. And I would say this movie is the psychologically menacing one, because one thing Stephen King does really well is it's never just about like the content right in front of you. It's not about a clown. It's way more like layered and more in depth. And they really go into the psychological trauma that the children are dealing with individually each. And so, yeah, that's a good point.
Yeah, we also then meet in a separate scene Mike, who's a homeschooled kid working on a farm with his grandfather, and he's delivering meat. And he has an early encounter where the door he's delivering meat to in the alley suddenly is smoke filled, and we see this hands reaching out from the door, like trying to escape, and we hear screaming, and we find out that Mike's parents had died in a house fire. And it goes back to the nature of it, and the nature of, Pennywise is how he's represented most often in the movie. But he's not actually a clown. He is whatever scares you the most. And
right.
That's what makes him, impossibly creepy.
Right. Yeah. Because I think he says it in the book that it's, I didn't read the whole book. I read about 300 pages of the book. I didn't finish it, but,
well, you're about 900 short then.
About 900 short. Yeah. But, yeah. But he had, I think he said that, the fear seasons the meat. So like, that's how he wants to, scare people to make them taste better.
Yeah, that's exactly right. And once the door finally does open, inside, set back from the doorway in kind of like a little cage, is Pennywise the dancing clown, and he's got a menacing look on his face, and he's doing his silly little dance, and it's just creepy and unsettling. And luckily, the bully group, led by Henry Bauer, actually interrupts before anything more can happen, and that's kind of the end. But now Mike, another kid, is exposed to what's going on here, and our group, our main kids in our group, start to have encounters with it. Stan is chased by a deformed woman from a painting, and as Ben is chased in the library by a headless man. And ultimate germaphobe Eddie is confronted by a leper who gets right in his face, and it's very disgusting and disturbing. But when Ben runs from the library, he runs right into the Bowers gang, who just have it out for picking on and torturing all these kids. And as they hold him and beat him, and Henry is carving his name in his stomach. Talk about, how are you going to say it wasn't me? Right, like this kid's just
he didn't really think that one through.
And one of what I think is a real cool, subtle scene, the history of this town Derry has all these disturbing histories and this dark mythology to it. And there's a
I think
car
it starts
that
in like
drives
the
by.
1700s or something. Yeah, there's like a whole history of it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep. And there's a car that drives by, seeing this kid get his stomach carved up, and the adults in it just keep straight ahead, don't stop, they don't do anything.
Yeah.
And then there's symbolically is the red balloon in the back of their window, which
Mhm.
to me just
Yeah.
kind of, it's the rot permeates the whole town.
Yeah. Yeah, like it's just it's infected. Like, wait, then it makes you think, like, was that car even there? Did it create an illusion for them, whoever was in the car, not to see it? We don't know.
Yeah, it's just symbolic of the degradation of the town in general.
Hmm.
Ben manages to kick Bauer back and flips over a railing, rolling down into the woods. And he runs, and he actually runs and meets up with Bill's gang. So they kind of add one to their group because they're all running from the bullies at this point. And they find a sneaker belonging to a missing girl. Just like Bill's brother Georgie, there's a new poster of a missing girl in town, and they find her sneaker. Meanwhile, while they're tracking him, one of the bullies actually gets lured into the sewer and is devoured by Pennywise. So kind of one of the bullies gets his comeuppance. The boys go to the pharmacy. They're going to fix up Ben's cuts. They quickly kind of embrace him as one of their own, even though they had just met him. And he fit the profile. You know, he's kind of an outsider, kind of a loner, doesn't really fit in.
It fits in with the Losers Club, though.
The Losers Club, yeah.
Yeah.
There they meet Beverly, and she distracts the pharmacist while they kind of lift the supplies they need to patch him up.
Yeah.
And then we follow Beverly home, where she's confronted by her creepy and abusive father, and she cuts her hair real short. It's kind of an act of defiance because
it's rebellious. Yeah, she wants to be seen more masculine. Yeah, she doesn't want it. Yeah,
he's touching her hair and he's commenting on her. And
there's a lot implied. Yeah,
very uncomfortable.
Yeah,
the boys are hanging out at a cliff, all in their tighty whities, waiting to go swimming. And I'm thinking, not one kid owns a bathing suit. I was a kid in the 80s. We all had bathing suits.
Yeah. I don't know if that was a 1940s, 50s thing or.
Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah.
Bev shows up and they're all hesitant to jump off the cliff. She jumps off first because she's clearly the bravest of the bunch.
Yeah.
They're
all nervous. They're all nervous around her constantly.
Yeah, and they're staring at her and they can't look away.
They're kind of gawking. Yeah.
But it's a fun day of them just being kids.
Yeah.
And we get to see them, in a different light than what they're about to become exposed to.
Yeah, which is great for the movie's tone and pacing. I think they do it throughout the whole movie really well. Like, it sucks you into these characters and this great dialogue that they use, and it's great character development. And you get these characters get fleshed out, and it's like really wholesome. And then, like, bam, it just they come in with like the Pennywise, like they drip it in throughout the movie very, very well.
Yeah, Ben starts telling him about the research he's been doing at the library, and he kind of points to some of the things in the past, and he's kind of documenting some of the tragedies that have befallen the town. And Bev gets home and she has a postcard stuck in her stuff, and it's a poem. She doesn't know who it's from, but she's kind of hoping it's from Bill. And this is where she first has her encounter. There's voices coming from the bathroom sink, and she's attacked by hair. And finally, it just bursts blood, gallons of blood, all over the room. There's blood spraying out everywhere. The walls are covered. The bathtub is covered. She's covered. And her dad comes in, and he can't see any of it.
Mm-hmm.
Which was kind of cool. Like, oh my God, what's he going to say? And he doesn't say anything.
Right. Yeah. He's just acting completely normal. And which I thought this was a great scene. He's acting completely normal. And she's just like horrified. He's like, what the?
What are you doing in here, Bevy?
Yeah. Yeah. And she's like, you don't see all this? Like, yeah, like a very schizophrenic moment for her,
Bill has his encounter. He late at night, he sees Georgie's yellow coat running through the house and hears him giggling. And he follows him into the basement that has standing water. And Georgie's hiding in the corner, very much in the shadows. And he kind of peeks his head out. He doesn't quite look the same, but it's him.
Yeah.
And he's telling Bill that, you'll float too, you'll float too. And Pennywise, the clown's wet head comes up from the water.
Yeah.
And then I can't even just, it skitters like a high-speed water bug through the water.
Yeah, that's actually a great way to put it. Yeah.
Directly towards Bill, who runs up the stairs and shuts the door and gets out. So now pretty much everybody has had exposure to some form of Pennywise at this point, except for Loudmouth Richie.
Yeah, he's traumatizing and seasoning them.
Yes, he is. Bev shows the boys her bathroom, still covered in blood, and tells them how their dad can't see it. And they do like an 80s comedy montage where they're all cleaning, which is kind of funny. With they're mopping, there's blood everywhere, and they're dumping it down.
Yeah, they're just like, hey, we'll do this.
But there's like lighthearted music, and they're all working together. That's all it reminded me of, like an 80s comedy montage.
Yeah, it's almost like they're cleaning up the yard to play baseball or something. Yeah, it's just blood.
And she repeats a line from the poem to Bill, hoping it was him, but he doesn't know what she's talking about, and it was clear it wasn't Bill. We know it was Ben, but she doesn't. The group sees Mike's bicycle outside, the homeschooled kid, and Henry's car is there, and they figure this is trouble, so they go to help. And they're beating Mike up, and Henry's he's got a big rock about to hit him in the head. And Mike looks over and he sees Pennywise hiding behind a bush, just waiting for this to happen so he could swoop in and grab the pieces, or who knows. He just loves all things evil.
Yeah, or maybe he just wants to continue dripping fear into his mind, like, I'm just going to sit here and watch this and laugh and then disappear and see you later.
As Henry's about to do it, he gets hit in the head with a rock, and Mike scatters across the other side of the stream, and now we have a full-on rock war between the losers and the bullies. And the losers win just on sheer numbers. It's 7 against 3.
Yeah. And
now Mike has kind of officially joined the group. They prepare a slideshow in Bill's garage to point to some of the things that Ben has been talking about, and they figure out how it comes every 27 years. And they also figure out through maps that it moves through the sewers, and this rundown, decrepit house in town is in the exact same spot where the center well used to be. So they figure that's probably, the home base. At this point, Pennywise kind of emerges from the pictures. The pictures take control of themselves.
Yeah.
And another scene that they showed in the preview that was really cool.
I love the scene.
Yeah, it was a woman's hair blowing in the wind, and then it changes rapidly, and it turns to Pennywise's face. And the kids freak out. They can't shut the thing off. And then his head emerges, almost like the Ring style coming out of the TV. His giant head emerges into the garage.
Yeah, he's like 17 feet tall or something, and just comes right through, and then has that menacing look that they made famous with him. And then he kind of turns to the left, I think, to like Bev, and just starts like chasing them.
Yeah, and they get the garage door open, which casts light on the screen, and the screen's gone, and they all get away. At this point, everybody's pretty freaked out, but Bill wants to go to the house and confront him. The others do not.
Right. Which is important. A part of I think of the theme of the movie is like, no, it's time to confront this fear. So it's one of the most important parts as far as the theme goes.
And I think it speaks a little differently to Bill. He lost his brother. He has that guilt. So his determination is not likely to be matched by anybody else because they don't have those same things. He gives a rousing speech, and he goes off on his own. And we think he's going in alone. But it's funny. Bill has a stutter. They call him Stuttering Bill.
Stuttering Bill, yeah.
During his rousing speech, he doesn't stutter once, which I thought was kind of a cool thing. He really took charge.
Yeah, I never noticed that until you said that. That's a good observation.
Yeah. So they draw straws to see who's going in, because the kids finally do come, and they're backing him up. And it's Bill, Richie, and Eddie are going in. Richie finds a missing kid poster of himself, which totally freaks him out, but they calm him down. and they go upstairs, and of course they get separated. The leper is back and touches Eddie, and he freaks out, and he falls through the floor into the kitchen, lands flat on his back. Richie gets trapped in a giant room full of clowns. There's every type of clown you could imagine.
Yep.
And there's music playing, and then there's a casket, and Pennywise bursts out of the casket like he was shot off a trampoline way up into the air, and then lands and starts doing his dance. And at this point, Richie breaks through the door, and he's reunited with Bill. One thing this movie does really well is Richie's a jokester. He's constantly cracking jokes the whole movie.
Yeah.
There's all kinds of moments of humor or levity sprinkled in. When Georgie's chasing his boat, he runs into a DPW a blockade sign. He doesn't see it, and he hits his head and falls down. And it's kind of funny.
It's a very slapstick. There's a lot of slapstick stuff here. And like you said, they throw that humor in so well. And it's funny because it's from these like ragtag kids, and it's not too over the top where they're trying hard. It's like it feels like natural dialogue, like the way they throw it in there. I think Richie does the best. He was my favorite. He was in the Stranger Things, and he
Finn Wolfhard.
I don't know who wrote this dialogue, but it's fantastic.
Well, now they're presented with 3 doors, and this is another touch of the humor. One says scary, one says really scary, and the other one says not scary at all.
Right.
And they're standing there like, which one should we open?
Right.
In the middle of all this anxiety, it's just so they go on the one that's not scary at all, and of course it is.
Yeah, it's horrifying.
Yeah, and they end up back downstairs because Pennywise has moved to the refrigerator, and he's emerging from the refrigerator, and he's about to eat Eddie. And the guys have come down, and they're right there to watch it. Like there's nothing they can do. But all of a sudden, Pennywise's head is impaled with a giant pole, and it was Bev had run in and had done that to him.
And what's interesting is that throughout the movie, whenever he's attacked, his blood floats. It goes up.
Yeah. You'll float too.
Yeah, float too.
Yeah. So at this point, with the damage Bev did, Pennywise slinks down to the main well and dips down to recover. Bill wants to go after it, but the others do not, and they end up having a big fight, and they all go their separate ways. And now we cut to our bully Henry. He's at home with a couple buddies, and he's messing with his dad's gun. His dad's a cop, and his dad comes home and really bullies and humiliates him in front of his friends, and we kind of see where Henry gets his aggression. Yeah, he gets this aggression from this abusive father, which is another interesting part of the movie. That they even show that the bully himself is dealing with trauma at home, which every child is dealing with this trauma at home. And it's really interesting how they take time to kind of carve that all out. Yeah. Well, now we see Henry sees a red balloon, and he follows it to the mailbox where inside it's tied to a package that has his switchblade knife that he lost when he was chasing Ben. Mm-hmm. And he takes the knife inside, and his father's sleeping, empty beers in front of him. You kind of get the cliche story here. Yeah. And he holds the switchblade to his dad's neck, and he hits the button, and it just pops in. Yep. And he kills his father, and he's now basically a servant of it. Mm. During this breakup, all the kids are separate, doing their own thing. Eddie's overprotective mom, she doesn't want him hanging around those bad kids and that bad girl with the bad reputation. He goes into the pharmacy, and the pharmacist's daughter tells him that all his prescriptions are placebos, and he's not really sick. And then she writes "loser" on his cast. And after she says, "Hey, I'll sign that. I'll be your friend," like trying to be all nice, and she just writes "loser" on it. Yeah. And she's the one who at the beginning was picking on Bev in school, so we know she's not nice. Right. She's a bully too. Yeah. Yep. We go back to Bev. She tries to leave home, but it's locked, and her dad gets super aggressive with her. He's got her postcard with the poem, and says, "I hear you've been hanging around with boys all summer, and they're not touching you, are they, Bevy?"
Yeah.
And he gets
And he
really
says he
yes.
says he found it in her underwear drawer, which is another creepy thing. It's like, well, why are you doing that? But
Yeah.
the whole thing, they imply a lot.
Yeah, and he says, "Those boys know you're my girl, don't they?" And then he like pushes her down and gets on top of her, and it's like, okay, this is exactly what we thought it was.
Yeah. They wrote that line, they drew that line, and they said, figure it out.
And she kicks him off, runs into the bathroom. A lot of trauma in this house, in this bathroom, but he breaks in, and she smashes the toilet top over his head. And it like hard, it snaps, and he's down, and there's blood everywhere.
It was a straight swing. I was like, yeah.
Yeah. But before she can get away, Pennywise grabs her.
Yep.
Bill comes to check on her and finds the father on the floor and a message on the wall in blood. And he runs and finds Richie and tells him that it has Beverly. And to Richie's credit, they fought, they threw fists at each other. He's like, all right, we got to do something.
Let's do this. Yeah.
And in another one of those funny moments, Eddie's leaving his mom, and she's like, where are you going? He's like, I got to go. He's like, you lied to me. You turned me against my friends. And he threw his pills on the ground, and he calls them gazebos because he didn't know the word placebo.
Yeah, placebos. Yeah.
And I crack up every time he does it. They're gazebos. They're bullshit, which is what almost what the girl told him. But it's just great. So the gang's back together. They're at the house, and they're climbing down the well that Pennywise went down. And we see Bowers is hiding outside. Everyone gets down but Mike, and Bowers attacks him. And Mike manages to hit him in the head, and then he pushes him down the well. And he falls past the kids, and we don't ever hear him land. We don't really know where he ended up.
That's a good point. Yeah.
The kids make it down there, and they find one of the famous visuals of the movie, the mountain of floating kids. It's got debris and bicycles and tricycles and just bodies floating in this cone-shaped
this cone-shaped centrifuge of dead bodies or whatever.
It's really creepy. At this point, Bev is floating there as well, and Bill sees her, but he also sees Georgie in the yellow coat. And he's like, I'll be back for you. And he runs to find Georgie. Well, luckily, the others come in shortly thereafter, and they get her down, and she's comatose. She's completely out of it. But Ben tries an old Disney trick and kisses her on the lips. Nothing like unapproved affection or date rape, whatever you want to call it. He kisses her on the lips.
He's just continuing her trauma. It's like, no, that's the last thing she needed.
Yeah, but she comes to, and she looks at him, and then she repeats the poem that he had written for her, which so she knows it was him. They find Bill, who chased after Georgie, and Bill is talking to him, and they're talking back and forth, and Bill tells him he loves him, and then takes the gun that they had brought and shoots him in the head. And says, but I know it's not you. Yeah. And that was kind of a touching scene.
It's intense. Yeah. Because to be able to pull that off, you start to see that they're starting to have courage, and they're confronting the trauma,
And sure enough, Georgie folds up like plastic and changes shape, and he turns into Pennywise, and they all start attacking him. And it's like a fight, and they're hitting him with bats, and he's throwing them off, and it's just a big brawl.
Yeah.
And finally, he gets a hold of Bill, and he's got Bill by the throat. And he tells the others that they can leave. He's like, just let me have him. Let me feed on him, and I'll be gone for 27 years. You guys can just go on your lives and get out of this place. And it's Richie.
He's negotiating. Yeah.
Richie, who fought with Bill over going in the first place, who says, I didn't want to come here, and I didn't want any part of this, and Bill talked me to, and now I got to kick your clown ass, or something like that. And they're not going to leave him, so they all step up, and the battle continues. And
I love that scene.
they beat him down and they beat him down and they beat him down, and you see him shrinking, like almost a physical diminishing in size as he loses power over them.
Yeah, they're not afraid at all, and so he's like, "Well, I can't eat you guys. You're not afraid." Like, yeah, they've taken the power from him. Yeah.
And at this point, he's beat down, and he kind of slips away, and there's another hole that he slides down, and he's gone. Bill picks up Georgie's yellow coat, and he cries, and then that's it. They've defeated it.
Yeah.
And then it cuts to a scene in September where they're all back to school or whatever, and they all get together one last time, and they make an oath to come back in 27 years if it's not dead or if it ever comes back. And at that point, they all leave. Bev is moving away completely, and Bill kisses her on the mouth, and she kind of knows they share that feeling. They share a nice tender moment alone.
Tender moment, yeah.
It takes, and in the book alternates between the adult and the kids and the adult and the kids, and it goes back and forth between the stories. I think this was such a smart way to do it, is to tell the kid's story,
yes,
and then set up the movie for the adult version.
Yes.
We talked about how great the movie is. It is the highest grossing horror movie of all time, not adjusted for inflation, but it's still, miles ahead of anything else.
It's well deserved. Everything about it is well done. The set pieces are fantastic. Everything from the acting to the music, the set pieces, the costumes, the 80s vibe. Like everything from New Kids on the Block to Anthrax to the Nightmare on Elm Street 4 or 5 or whatever it was that they have on the theater that came out that year. Like everything's just genuine and just it's an awesome movie.
Yeah,
and
agree.
And I think that, like, not only that, but it's brilliant. Like, just the very core of what it means, like dealing with childhood trauma, and from the thing that consumes you, it will consume you if you don't face it, and it's masked by hedonism, right? Like, so for instance, you might have like some childhood trauma and then try to deal with it through like partying and alcoholism as you get older. That doesn't help you, right? That's what the clown is. It's like untethered hedonism, and you have to confront that to deal with the trauma. And something that simple, and the way he like wrote that book and made the movie was made, I think is just genius.
Yeah, it's really terrific. And I think, there's a lot of Stephen King adaptations out there. Some are great and some are awful.
Yeah.
And, it's interesting because this is one of the best ones, particularly on the pure horror side.
Right.
Some of the other best ones are things that aren't really horror, like Shawshank Redemption, Green Mile, etc. The Body, Stand By Me. This is pure horror, and this is one of the best pure horror adaptations. And they stuck to the source material. I changed a couple things, but almost exclusively.
There were certain things that would never make it to film, but yeah,
right, yeah, for good reason. But
for good reason.
But they didn't try to reinvent the story. It's a classic story. It's a story that millions of people have read and loved, and they didn't try to reinvent the wheel. The very same year, a movie I was so looking forward to came out. That's a Stephen King adaptation that broke all of those rules we talked about and is hot garbage. And I hate to even say the name to give it credence and existence, but The Dark Tower.
Yeah.
Tried to take 8 books and make it into an hour-and-a-half movie that didn't follow any of the mythology, any of the depth and world building. They made it PG-13, and it's like the source material didn't exist, and it should be burned and buried and never seen again.
Yeah, like, why did they do that? What were they doing? Yeah,
that was a recipe for how absolutely not to do it.
That movie got such bad reviews, I never even watched it. It was one of those few times I was like, I'm going to take the critics on this one. And people were like, no. I was like, all right, I won't watch it.
I had to see it because it was my favorite series of all time. And I hated it so bad. Hopefully that can be rectified in the future, but it did it right. It was perfect.
Yeah, it might get done. We're going to see.
All right. Well, our second movie on the list is a very modern clown tale. Terrifier 2, released in 2022, which was a great year for horror, directed by Damien Leone And this is a movie that's been kind of building with his All Hallows Eve and Terrifier. Art the Clown is really grown in popularity. You see actual Halloween costumes of Art the Clown.
Yeah, little fixtures and trinkets and stuff. He's kind of popping up everywhere.
Yeah, and it's when we were first talking about it, I said it's funny because Art the Clown seems more like a mime to me than a clown because he doesn't ever speak. And then what's the news you just shared with me today?
Today is the 100th birthday of Marcel Marceau. I hope I pronounced that properly.
Marcel.
He was 100. Marcel, yeah, and Art the Clown. They modeled his makeup off him, and he was like the most famous mime 100 years ago, and that was kind of like his thing. And they modeled Art the Clown off him, and so today is his 100th birthday.
Well, that's funny because as a kid, and I'm older than you, but Marcel Marceau is the only mime I'd ever heard of.
Me too.
It's kind of funny that it ties directly into Art the Clown.
Yes. Yeah.
So we start with Art the Clown in the morgue because he was killed in the first movie, but of course he's not dead. He has basically supernatural properties at this point,
which was hinted at in the original one. Like I think that was a big question on everyone's mind. Like is there supernatural elements in the first one? Because they never really say it, but it's like he would just appear, or like the hand coming through the ground kind of thing. So it was kind of implied, but like there was no story given. Where I think there's in Terrifier 2, it's 2 hour and 20-minute runtime, 2 hour and 18 minutes. So they stretched they were able to do a lot more with the story in this movie.
Yeah, actually, both of these movies were 2 hours 17 minutes and beyond. So we had two long ones here.
2 long ones, yeah.
We start with Art in the morgue, but of course he's not dead, and he takes the medical examiner's hammer and he bashes his head until it's pulp, and then he plucks out his eye and sticks it in his own empty eye socket.
My favorite scene. I loved it.
I know you love the eyes, but like just plucking somebody's eye and sticking it in your own eye hole.
Yeah.
Doesn't really work, you wouldn't think. He continues to bash his head, and then he just pulls out the brain and takes it with him.
Yeah.
This movie is very
he's
graphic.
got to use the brain for his, right? Didn't he put it in his head? Is that what the whole point of that was?
Yeah, because he had
he had stuff missing. Yeah.
He's just refilling parts. Of course, he's a mess now because he's just been smashing blood all over. So he goes to the laundromat, and it shows him sitting naked reading a newspaper with all of his stuff in the washing machine.
Yeah, this guy still got his big clown shoes on though. For some reason, just socks and big clown shoes, and he's just naked with blood all over him and his mask.
It was just kind of a ridiculous scene, but it was kind of funny. And this is where the creepy dead clown girl appears.
Yeah, very creepy.
And the funny thing about the clown girl, she has a reoccurring part in this movie, but there's one customer in the laundromat, and when he looks, he just sees Art naked reading the paper but talking to himself.
Yeah,
where Art is talking to the little girl. So I think he's a figment of his imagination. But later on in the movie, she actually manifests herself to do things, so she can't be a figment of his imagination. So I'm a little unclear on what she is.
There's a supernatural thing going on. She's a deity of some kind, right?
A ghost, a spirit, I don't know.
Something, apparition or whatever.
So he gets his clothes all clean. So he's fresh, clean, nice, bright white. And as
he's got to have his clothes cleaned.
Yeah, I don't know why, because it gets messy.
It's just so comical for this movie that they would put that in there. I love it.
Yeah, and as he leaves, we see that one lone customer. He broke the mop handle in half and impaled it up through his skull.
Yeah.
So that's funny. We cut to our main character. Really is Sienna. And she's a teenage girl, and she's making what I can only describe as a warrior angel costume. Mm-hmm. Her deceased father was an artist, and he drew comic strips, like adult comics, and this was something he had drawn, and he pictured her. So she was honoring him by making that costume. Her little brother Jonathan wants to go for Halloween as Art the Clown. But mom says no. But the boy is really into serial killers, and he's kind of a creepy kid. And he tells his sister he's going as Art anyways.
Yeah, he's kind of he's at that awkward kid rebellion phase. He's trying to do it and be rebellious in the way he knows how to be rebellious, as most kids that age are. And like he just lost his father, so I mean, you almost like have sympathy for that character. Like if he didn't like lose his father, you're like, okay, he's just acting out. But it's like, oh well, there's an issue going on.
Yeah,
You know,
he's
so it's
struggling.
right back. Right. Yeah. So he's trying to find some kind of way to deal with it.
And that night, Sienna dreams of a kids show, like a TV show you would see, you know, in the 70s and 80s. They had them all the
Yeah,
time.
one of those sketch comedies, almost Barney style or whatever it is. Yeah.
And this kids show is hosted by Art. And the kids are actually not kids; they're all older, and they're just acting super wacky. And he's giving them out weird presents, and then he gives her a box, and she opens it, and it's the beating heart that he took from the medical examiner, and it's covered in worms, and it's still beating for some reason. And then Art takes out a machine gun, which is interesting about Art. Most of our movie
Slashers.
killers don't use firearms.
Yeah.
Art has no problem with it.
Yeah,
he takes
take a
out a
Tommy
machine gun,
out. Yeah.
and he's just cutting people to shreds. And there's just chunks of people flying as he's blasting them all over the place.
And it actually having him use the Tommy gun like that was very. I think it was a kind of a shout out to the Joker character in the Batman series because he'll often use like Tommy guns and stuff like that in the comic. And David Horton actually did, and for the Gotham series, he was the Joker. So he actually does a great Joker. And in the scene, when you hear like that Mark Hamill Joker voice in real like quick when the TV's playing, that's actually David Thornton acting, but it sounds like Mark Hamill as the Joker. A brilliant shout out to that as well too. Like I think they put that in there on purpose. They're like, we want to hear you sound like Mark Hamill's Joker real quick. We're going to throw that in the movie. You know what I mean? Like, yeah. It was cool.
The cool thing about a movie like this is they really don't have to abide by any rules. It's kind of an independent film.
Yeah, it
was crowdfunded for some of the scenes. The total budget came in at a little over $4 million. So you know they had that creative freedom. They weren't tied to a studio's demands, and it really shows because they go nuts in this movie.
Yeah, this is a movie for the fans for sure.
After shredding everybody with the machine gun, Art takes a little flamethrower and he's just burning everything up. And Sienna blocks the flames with the special blade her father had given her. And she wakes up and her angel costume is burning.
Yeah.
And it's funny that now the mom's mad, thinks she left a candle on or something. And she can't really explain, well, no, it came out of my dream, but you know, now we see, you know, Art is at home. He's making new weapons, and the dead girl is sitting there watching television. And it's just a really strange scene. And they show up at Jonathan's school, and they're sitting in the hall playing with a dead animal. And then as he finds them,
they're outside playing with the dead animal, and then teacher tells them to get in.
And the kids are
class. Yeah. And then
and then Jonathan goes.
I'm sorry.
To the bathroom.
I'm sorry. And then he finds that. Okay, right.
Yeah, they're sitting there and they got it ripped open with the guts out, and they're just playing in it, like laughing. And he's standing there, and they throw it at him. So he catches it, and then the teacher finds him, you know, with him in it.
Yeah.
So he gets thrown out of school because they accused him of bringing it in. And Sienna's now at a costume store buying replacement wings for her wings that burn, and Art shows up. And he's harassing her. He gets, you know, he doesn't speak.
In a way that a mime harasses you, right?
Yeah. You know, he's honking horns and he's getting in her face and he's just being really annoying. And she finally pays and leaves. And Art follows her and he locks the door. And then he kills the clerk. He takes a bottle, he hits him over the head, and then he takes the broken half of the bottle and he sticks it right through his face. And then he ends up cleaving his head completely in half and then severs the head from the body. This movie is very, very violent.
Very, very gruesome, very brutal movie. And, you know, they did an awesome job with the special effects, I must say.
Yeah. At home, Sienna and Jonathan they're talking about both seeing Art, and they're going through the father's artwork where he has a picture of Art the Clown. And they're talking about Sienna's connection with the drawing her father did and drawing Art. And he asked her to stay home that night because she's supposed to go to a party. And then we cut to Sienna's friend Allie is home handing out candy. and Art arrives and is trick-or-treating. And he keeps creeping her out, and he won't leave till she gives him some candy.
Which actually, this scene bothered me. I go trick-or-treating with my son every year. I've never seen anyone get mad about giving someone an adult candy. They actually offer it. Like, I'll go with my son, like, hey, you want some too? You know, like, she's like, we don't give it to adults. It's like, why? Like, why were you making a big deal about this? Like, I don't.
Yeah, well, she finally gives it to him. And then she watches out the window, and we see Art walk away. And then she goes upstairs to change and hears noises downstairs. So she comes down, and there's broken glass at the sliding door, and Art is walking around the kitchen like it's his own.
Yeah.
Making a sandwich, just doing whatever. He grabs a knife and he chases her. And so this scene, I'll go through the whole thing and then I'll comment on it.
Okay.
So first he takes the knife and he slices her right down the middle of the face, including cutting one of her eyes.
Yeah, another eye.
He then cuts her forehead and pulls her scalp back. He pushes her down and slices her back over and over and over.
Mm-hmm.
He pulls her one arm backwards, snapping it at the elbow, and keeps bending it back and forth
yeah.
until he rips it off.
Yeah.
And then he splits her other hand in half.
Like, literally from the middle, grabs it and just goes.
Splits it down the middle. He walks out and she's still crawling around, somehow still alive. And you think, oh Jesus, this is unbelievable. He comes back in with a jug of bleach and a bag of salt. And he pours it all over her and then is rubbing the salt in. At this point, it's unbelievable. Like, I've never seen a scene go this far and continue.
Yes, it went on. And I mean, as brutal and like gruesome as it was, when he brought in the salt and the bleach, I kind of chuckled. It was just like, I realized that they're bringing comedy to this insane scene. Like, I know it's an insane scene, but it's an
insane scene. And it doesn't end. Allie's mom comes home, so we think maybe we're done. She comes up and finds them in her room on her bed, and Art is just sitting there cutting pieces of her off.
He's just filleting it. Yeah, he's just filleting pieces.
And she's still alive. And at this point, I'm like, is this the worst kill ever shown? Is this the most brutal thing ever done to a human being in cinema? It may be.
But it might be one of them.
I can't think of anything worse.
Yeah, from the arms, just the arms themselves. Just the sky. Yeah, everything you just listed. Yeah, everything. Yeah,
you got a sliced pop eyeball. You're scalped. It's.
Yeah, they brought it all.
They brought it all.
Yeah, it's Terrifier too.
It's unbelievable.
Yeah.
Now we see a scene. Trick-or-treaters come to the door, and Art is serving candy out of the mom's severed and hollowed head.
Yeah, to continue on the brutality of that scene, it's like it still didn't stop.
Yeah, we didn't get to see that, or didn't have to see that, depending on how you look at it, but we see the results. Right. He's serving, and the candy's all covered in goo and brain matter, and the kids are like, ew.
Yeah.
It's crazy.
And the mom's like, no, it's just an effect. Yeah, just take it. And he's just like laughing, like, just take it.
Yeah. Should be good.
The most sinister slasher of all time.
Yeah. So Sienna goes off to her party, and Jonathan and the mom get into a fight, and he runs out. She finds her car vandalized in the garage. It's covered in shaving cream, and it says "bitch" on the front window. And she thinks that he did it.
Yeah.
And as she's cleaning the car, she wipes the off of the driver's side window, and Art is sitting right in the window and shotguns her right to the face.
Yep, just pulls the barrel right up and boom.
So
I did not see that coming.
One thing I'll say at this point is, this isn't it. This isn't a major studio movie. The acting is a step down for sure, but I think most of the people in this movie do a decent job. The one exception is the adult, the mom.
Yeah.
The mom is totally unbelievable. She is completely over the top on everything she does. It doesn't ring as real or true. I thought whoever the mom was, I thought was the worst actress in the whole movie.
Yeah, I you didn't get any empathy. You know, it was just like she was just like the stereotypical annoyed mom with everyone. You know, like there was no empathy for what the children were going through, or what's going on, or her trying to have any kind of understanding or character development. It's just the pour a glass of wine, Jesus type kind of anger. Yeah, that's how it felt.
All she could do was yell, and her yelling was inappropriate and didn't match up the scenes at times.
And
like
immediately, like her first scene, she's on the phone, she's working, and she's kind of just, being annoyed. And it just kind of felt like that was her every scene. There was no real development in the character. I agree.
Yeah. So I know we weren't looking for Oscar performances here, but I just thought she stuck out to me that everybody else pulled off this crazy, wacky lunacy with some degree of success. And I thought she was bad.
Yeah, I was actually surprised by Sienna and her brother how well they did. I thought they did fantastic.
Yeah,
for what they were for the source material. It's not exactly a depth movie.
Yeah, absolutely. Jonathan comes home and he finds his mom with her exploded head sitting at the table, and Art is serving dinner, and he injects Jonathan with something, and he takes him along with Sienna's special blade.
I actually thought that scene was more disturbing than the previous one, because for a 14, 15-year-old to come home and see that, I think would be more. I just thought that was like, wow, that's a disturbing thing. Like to just walk in and see that. This whole movie's disturbing, by the way.
Very true.
It's not just any one particular scene, right? Like take your pick. You know what I mean? Yeah.
Nothing tops that scene to me. That poor girl. Like, oh my God.
Yeah, that was insane. They draw that out.
So Sienna's at this party with her friend, and her friend's boyfriend shows up, and her friend actually drugs her to help her have a good time. And, of course, she gets mad about it and has her and her boyfriend take her home. On the way, she gets a call from Jonathan, but it's actually the little dead girl copying his voice.
Yeah, and almost like Terminator. She's pretending to be, yeah.
And she has to meet them at the old closed down carnival. So she convinces her friends to take her there, but they wait in the car. Well, while they're waiting in the car, the guy has to take a leak.
The annoying boyfriend trope.
The annoying boyfriend, yes. Over sexualized, only
making
cares
fun
about
of
one
constant
thing.
jokes that are annoying. Yeah, you're like, all right, when's he die?
So here's where he dies. He has to go pee, and Art slices him, stabs him in the groin repeatedly, literally pulls his dick off, and then smears it against the car window.
Yeah.
Which is like just not pleasant to see.
Yeah, they went for it. I was like, oh.
Yeah. He pulls the girl out of the car, and he chases her to a bloody bathroom. And there he grabs a bucket of acid and throws it on her face, and then just pulverizes her head until it just basically disintegrates into pulp.
And they show it in the very beginning scene when he's leaving the coroner's office. He grabs that. They show it. He's grabbing supplies after he bashes the first kill, and they show him grabbing that stuff. I didn't catch on to it until later. I was like,
ridiculously well prepared for a crazy mime psychopath.
Yeah. Yes.
Every contingency is covered. She's pulverized. She's obviously dead, and he pulls her heart out. And Sienna walks in, and Art turns on her. But at this point, Jonathan distracts him, and Sienna stabs him in the leg. Jonathan runs away, and Art is beating the crap out of Sienna, but not killing her. He's just beating her up, basically. And then he takes off,
whipping her and stuff.
Yeah, just knocking her around, and finally he takes off chasing Jonathan, and he catches him. And this part surprised me. I know they pushed the envelope here, but Jonathan's 12 years old. And he just he starts slicing him up, and he's cutting him, and he's cutting his face, and he's cutting his back. And Sienna arrives, and she had picked up Art's spiked bat and hits him in the head, and it sticks in the back of his head, and they run off. But as we've learned, you can't keep Art down with something so simple. No. He catches up to them, and now he's whipping them both with a metal chain. And you can see it, they're tearing through their clothes, tearing chunks of flesh off of them. Yeah, he's just pounding them unbelievably.
He's just torturing them. Yeah, he's just like laughing the whole time.
Somehow with her costume, Sienna's able to grab it and get it away from him, and starts hitting him with it. And then she, when he's down, she impales his head with a metal rod. And they relax, and they think they think it's over, and it's never over. He gets up and he's still attacking her, and then Jonathan finally shoots Art's gun and downs him. And it looks like he put him down, maybe for good this time. We don't know.
Yeah.
Sienna has a vision of her mom, and she hugs her. And the little girl shows her the visions of her mom being dead. And it's Art, and he chokes her and pushes her down a hole. And he stabs her with a blade, and she falls into a brightly red colored opening. Hell? Don't know.
Yeah. They don't say it. Yeah, there's
a hole within
this
a
movie
hole.
leaves. Yeah, there's questions that they walk away with in this movie, but
wherever she goes, she drops into this hole with red light, and she is back at the kids' show. This time, she is trapped in a water tank, and she can't get out. She sees the death scene from her vision, and she drowns.
Yeah.
And Sienna's gone, or so we think. Nobody's ever gone in this movie for real.
Right.
Jonathan comes to. He was passed out with Art's biting him, like eating him. Yeah. And
it's like his wrist or something, his arm or something like that.
Yeah,
right?
he's just
like
taking little bites out of him.
He's trying to wake him up, I think, just like in a torturous way. Yeah.
And at this point, Sienna's blade that her dad gave her kind of lights up, and then we cut to her in the tank, and she reanimates. And she gets out of the tank. She stabs him with a blade. She cuts his throat and then cuts his head off. And you think, okay, it's finally over. And the little girl appears, and she picks up Art's head, and she leaves.
Yeah, she makes eye contact with them too, like she knows, and she like takes the head and leaves. So there's a little bit of meta going on there.
So as she leaves, the credits start rolling. And you think, okay, well, that's the end of this movie, and Art's been beheaded. But in a mid-credit scene, if you remember from the first movie, there was a newscaster who had a deformed victim on, and she attacked her. Well, this Victoria, the disfigured woman, is in a mental hospital, and we see a scene of her in the room, sitting down, blood everywhere, and she gives birth to Art's living head. So it's like, okay, this isn't over, but it was a pretty damn good mid-credit scene to up the ante a little bit.
I am really looking forward to Terrifier 3. I think what they did is very unique, something new and fun. A new icon in the slasher series. I think it's awesome. I like how they added the supernatural element. Like it's they just went with like the sword. It's not fully explained. Some of it's kind of implied, like when they say like, oh, they brought you here for a reason, they want you here. And then the dad was making drawings and gave her the sword, and the sword has power. Like it kind of protected her from the fire in the dream. Like I thought that was all really interesting. I liked it. It kind of wakes her up from like when she's in the tank, the water tank, like you said, like it helps get like there's a lot of supernatural stuff going on here, but they don't like put it in your face as far as like telling you what it means. You're kind of like left with it to like think about what it could mean.
It reminds me of some foreign films that focus on the scene rather than making sense of it or explaining to it. A lot of Mexican horror movies did this. They added some mythology and some mysticism that they didn't explain it. They kind of left it to the imagination. This does a little bit of that. Certainly, I would say
movies do that sometimes.
Yeah, exactly right. This movie is not for everyone. It's not.
No, this is a very select niche. This is a niche horror. Yeah,
it's not something I would go to Blockbuster Video and recommend.
This is a date night movie. This is not a date night movie. No.
Yeah, it is not. But it's if you like that kind of thing, it's enjoyable. It's crazy. It doesn't take itself too seriously, but it's a lot of set pieces designed to demonstrate these incredibly graphic kills, and
Yeah.
what it tries to be, it bees it perfect.
Agreed, 100%. You know, if it was just like torture porn, like I wouldn't like it. I don't like that kind of stuff. They have fun with the special effects. Clearly, they enjoy the art of the special effects. You can tell that. And they also they I think they did well with the character development in this movie. I was actually kind of surprised. Like I thought, I just thought like the Sienna character with the brother. Like I thought that was well done. I wasn't expecting that. Like from the original one, you don't really get any of that. It's just kind of art
Right.
thrown in there. There's torture scenes, and these kind of kill scenes, and he's just creepy clown. It's like okay, but I thought they actually did for what the budget was. I think they did really well.
They did bring a story to it. Yeah, I
Yeah,
agree.
yeah.
It definitely is a level up in that category from the original. But yeah, like I said, not for everyone's taste, but certainly a terrifying clown, or mine.
Yeah, yeah. I'm hoping to see more of them.
All right. Well, that is our show for this week. We thank you as always for listening. I am Jerry. That is Matt. We are the Weekly Horoscope, and we will catch you next time. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, everyone. Thank you, Jerry.
Your weekly horoscope with Jerry and Matt.